What's up, Eagles fans? Welcome to Coaches Masterclass presented by Lincoln Financial Group. I'm Fran Duffy, and pleased to be joined today by Eagles linebackers coach Nick Rallis to talk about defeating blocks at the linebacker position. Coach, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, Fran, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this.
So before we get into the film, just want to kind of pepper you with this question. When you're talking about defeating blocks, obviously it's one of the staples of playing linebacker. You're going to play through contact. What are some of the general coaching points and some of the general ways that you're looking for your guys to be able to defeat blocks on the move?
Yeah, so the first thing is 100% block attention. So what does that mean? So they might be keying the running back, the tight end early in the play, right? Trying to get to the right gap, the right spot to fit. But as soon as this lineman or tight end or fullback is on me and he's going to block me, I got to snap my eyes to him. I got to see what I'm striking. So if I'm still looking for the ball, that guy's going to block me. Now, there's several different types of ways to defeat blocks. So this first one I wanted to talk about is what we call a shock and shed. So shock and shed is your standard punch, and then I'm gonna rip away from them. I'm gonna shed in the opposite direction that I'm trying to go. So the coaching point with this is really to coil and strike. So what I mean by that is, like, you've seen the videos of like a snake, like an Animal Planet or something like that,
Sure,
like Nat Geo, right? When they get coiled up before they go snap out at their prey, right? They're coiled and then it's bam, it's explosive. Right? Because these old linemen weigh 300 plus pounds. You know, my guys are 220s to 250. So how do we generate more force, more power than those offensive linemen? And that's to coil and explosively strike at the guy, right? So when I strike, though, I don't want to put my head down and strike. I want to get my head out of it. So we're striking with our hands, right? We're shooting our hips. We're getting triple extension through the waist, all right? And I'm locking out. I want my hands ideally inside with my thumbs up. Okay, and the thumbs up is to put your shoulders in the correct position, lock your scap down. All right, hands inside helps you get it on the guy's breastplates and really control the man. Now I can shed in the direction I want to go.
All right, that's a perfect visual here. So let's take us into the first clip, and I'm sure this is one of the first ones that you put here for a purpose, and that's with new Eagles linebacker Eric Wilson. Take us through what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so Eric on this play, they ran some sort of inside zone, and they inserted this tight end, and so you can see he's playing that A-gap, and he's tracking the ball carrier. And all of a sudden, wow, this guy gets on his lap quick, and you'll just see the explosiveness when he strikes this guy, and his hand placement is inside. Okay, so right now, here comes the blocker on me. I got to snap my attention to him. So he takes a look at 80. You could even say, hey, Eric, drop down a little bit lower, but just watch the explosion through his hips, get an extension with his hands. His hands are inside of the tight ends, and now he's able to shed and make a tackle, right? So just if you watch it live, it's like, whoa. It's explosive, right? That's the position you want to be in right there. That's a good shock and shed.
I mean, you see the impact there. You can see the
Correct.
violence right on contact. That's
Correct.
a perfect shot.
And he's doing a great job of, I'm exploding through this guy with my hands. I'm not putting my head in it. We don't want to put our head in it.
It's like you said, too, with the visual of the thumbs up, rubbing the elbow or the rib cages with your elbows, keeping those hands inside.
Correct.
Beautiful. That's a perfect visual. All right, so take us through this next one here. This is from the Eagles defense a year ago. What are we seeing here?
Yeah, so looking at Alex Singleton here, he just does a great job. He gets a wide flowing play. So this is something we talk about outside of 100% block attention, but I also need to be able to snap back into a power position on contact. So to start, this thing is flowing wide. His gap is traveling. He's running. He's running sideways. But on contact, I don't want to be running sideways because I've lost my power.
Yep.
So you can see right here prior to contact, he's got both feet in the ground underneath his shoulders so that, again, going back to that snake example, he can coil and strike through this guy. And then again, you'll see here, his hands are inside so he can get extension. This guy outweighs him by probably 80 to 100 pounds. So how do I get rid of this guy? Well, if I explosively snap him back, I've now created the separation I need. Once I see the ball declare, now I can shed him and get freely to the football. Don't absorb him, go strike through him.
Coach, I love that coaching point about having both feet in the ground. I guess that's where all your power comes from, that ability to kind of transfer that into the opponent. Is that a hard thing to be able to teach? Because you talked about how, you know, when you're about to take on contact, you got to get back square to the line of scrimmage. Is that a hard thing to teach for guys that maybe don't do that naturally?
It takes a great deal of athleticism.
Got it.
Right? And that's why these guys are professionals. And I think everybody can do it, whether it comes natural to them or you have to teach it. But at this level, most guys have the ability to do that. right? But it does take practice, and I'll kind of show you how we practice getting into that position here as we go.
Beautiful. I love it. All right, well, let's get to another one here against Dallas.
Yeah, so Sean Bradley right here in the middle, you'll see he just does a great job of striking explosively. It's that simple. He's in a powerful position on contact, right? So he's coming downhill, fitting his gap. He's running, right? 1 foot in the ground at a time, but on contact, look, both feet are in the ground. He's got a good base to him, and now he's going to explosively come through his hips and get extension with his hands. So what did he just do right there? He created separation from this big guy.
Yep.
And those big guys, once they get a hold of you now, they ain't getting out of their grip. I promise you that. So how do we create separation right away? That's to explosively strike. Now, he didn't even have to really shed the guy because he just created separation from his strike. He can go now finish the football.
For those linebackers, how do you, is it like kind of a play-by-play thing where you don't know if you're going to try and engage in stack and shed or whether you're just trying to pop them and shock them?
Yeah, that's a pop and shock. That's really good. So it can depend on where's the ball carrier in relation to this guy. If the ball carrier is right behind him, I might have to have a little bit more gap integrity, right? I got to take care of this A gap, so I'm going to strike him, and I'm going to stay on that block a little bit longer, and then once I see the ball cut, now I can get off. Or is the ball carrier way away from the play like this one here? He's just going to shock him and almost pop away from his body, right? So I'm going to shock and get off this guy. I'm not going to dance around with this block. I'm going to go get to the football. Name of the game, right? Get to the football.
I love it. So now we got another one here against New York. Who are we looking at here?
TJ Edwards right here on the fullback. So this is just an example of being violent. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that this is a violent game, and to play here in between the tackles, you have to play with explosiveness and violence. And so you'll see TJ right here. This guy's inserting on him. Again, gets to a powerful position on contact, and then watch him strike through this guy. Now, I would say the one coaching point, TJ, get your hands in. You see his elbow flare a little bit, but he comes in with so much power and so much explosiveness that it honestly, it didn't even matter. He shocked him so much, he didn't even hardly have to shed the guy.
And we're getting into like the mental part of the run fit. But when you have linebackers coming out of college, not too often you're seeing these two-back sets down at that level. So is it hard to try and coach those guys up to be able to recognize what's coming from those two-back looks?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's hard. It's just a little new, right? And so you have to make sure that you go back to the basics, and you can't take anything for granted. Like, hey, when they get in this back set with the eye far, eye near, what can happen? I think a big thing with that coaching point to you get eye backs is make sure you snap your eyes to that fullback when it's time to go take him on. You can't still be looking at that running back. It's going to happen fast. Those fullbacks will get to you quick, 100% block attention.
All right, Coach, so we've seen some game clips. Now let's take it to the practice field and see how you're teaching these coaching points on an everyday basis.
Yeah, so right here, we're just working the shock and shed, and we're really just working the shock from a static position. Okay, so I got the med ball. What the med ball does is, one, it cushions the blow that I'm taking, but it actually gives him a realistic surface. There's some tight seams on there to where he has good hand placement, and he's just trying to strike through me. I want him to knock me back a handful of yards because I know now he's coiled and he's striking through me, right? So we're just working the strike here. You can see this is TJ Edwards is just striking through. We come out of his hips maybe a little bit more power, right? I want to work on being explosive through the blocker, right? So this is kind of the first step. Everything we do, we compartmentalize it to where it's whole part whole, right? So I'm going to introduce the concept shock and shed as a whole. Then we're going to work the parts. So let's just work the shock from a static position. Maybe we start on our knees and do it. So take away the element of having to stand and go through your ankles, right? We're just going through the hips and hands. Then we go from there, going through all three: ankles, hips, hands, extension. All right, then we'll move with it, right? And so the reason that I don't hit a sled is because, one, the sled doesn't actually mimic the forces in the game. So what I mean by that is not only does the linebacker deliver the force, but he has to absorb force from the blocker. Okay, and a sled just sitting there static, they never get that. I have to absorb and stop his force and deliver my own.
Sure.
So what I'm trying to simulate here is giving them, now I'm not going to mimic 100% what an offensive lineman can do at this level, but I can simulate, hey, I'm coming at you, I'm delivering this force to you, you got to be able to absorb that and actually deliver it back to me, right? And so that's why I like to be the one, it's more mechanically sound, right? It mimics the forces and it mimics the exact movements, right? And I know that doing the medicine ball with the tight hands and on the blocker, I know that they're actually getting in the correct positions that they need to get in. So you can see here, this one right here, we're now implementing movement. So what we've simulated here is, hey, this was a outside zone play. This is a wide flowing play. So you can see Davion Taylor here. He's running to start because it's a fast flow. He's got to go, right? His gap is on the move. Ball carrier's on the move. But at point of contact, what's he doing? Getting back into a power position. So I want to get him to snap his hips back in. So this is what we were talking about. How do you work it? This is it right here. I want him snapping his hips back to me, and then I got to be able to get into that coiled position and strike through it, right? And so that's what he's doing right there, simulating wide flow. Okay, snap back to a power position, strike through the blocker.
I love it. All right, so let's get to another look here. What are we seeing here with this play against Dallas?
Yeah, so this technique now is different from shock and shed.
Okay.
So there's a time to shock and shed where, yeah, I got to play my gap, and I'm going to control this block, but now I want to pull into the next gap and go finish on the football, right? We want population of the ball. But there's also times where it's, hey, I see an opening. I'm going to go take it. I'm going to go make this play now.
Sure.
And so we don't necessarily want to shock and shed because we'll slow down. We get into a power position. There's times where I want to keep accelerating. So this technique we call rip and pry. So now is the time when I want to accelerate past this lineman and I don't even want him to touch me. I'm going to go make a play on the ball right now. So you can see Alex Singleton here. He sees this opening, right? There's the ball. There's an opening. I'm going to go make this play. So what he does is instead of coming down to shock and shed the lineman, he's actually going to take surface away, and he's going to accelerate through the ball carrier. So what I mean by that is stop it right there. That right shoulder pad, that's perfect. See, if he was just running upright, all it takes is one hand to that shoulder pad, and it's going to tip him, and it's going to decelerate him. And the ball carrier is going to, boom, he's gone, right? At this level, he's out of there. So what I have to do is take surface away. So he's actually going to dip that right shoulder down so that there's no shoulder pad for that lineman to tip him. So now instead of getting tipped over, he continues to accelerate through the ball carrier, and he's able to get this ball down right now.
So it's similar to a pass rusher trying to dip a corner on an offensive tackle, a wide receiver defeating a jam from a press corner. Same kind of idea. You're trying to prevent, lower that target space for an offensive player to be able to block you.
Correct. Take away that inside pad. Take away your pec. So the teaching progression of this right here is I'm simulating being a guard or a tackle. And here comes Eric Wilson running through, and I just want them to get used to taking surface away. So he's taking surface away as he continues to accelerating through a cone here, but in the game, that's accelerating through the ball carrier. Now, there's a second piece to this. What happens when that lineman gets a little bit of my pad? Okay? So if they get a little bit of that pad, we're all right still. This is where we want to knuckle back. So you can see Alex here. He's taking surface away. He's ripping through. And now this is why we call it rip and pry, because he's going to pry himself through. So yeah, he doesn't get a clean shot through there. This guy is able to get surface, right? He gets that right pad. But watch what he does. He's going to rip, and he's actually going to take his knuckles back. So what you're doing when you take your knuckles back is you're actually prying that guy's arm out of there, right? That guy can't keep his arm in there because it's going to get jammed up. It's going to be a natural reaction for that guy to protect himself.
So it's got to be a really violent rip through and literally get your knuckles out behind your shoulder blades.
Correct. Think about it as like you're just opening up your chest.
Gotcha.
Now, right? It doesn't actually have to be violent. I just got to make sure I get to this position because now his arm's in an awkward spot. He's going to take it out of there. And the other thing that it does is it actually kind of brings my hips through naturally to the running back where I got to go. So this is a good clip of Alex doing it from last year. He didn't get clean through there, so he knuckles back and he's able to now go finish through it. So here's how we work it. We start engage. So here's me. I'm grabbing Alex's pec. So what he does is rip up and see him go knuckle back here. So now I got to get my arm out of there. Otherwise, my elbow's going to hyperextend.
All right, so now we see a different kind of look here. What are we looking here? Minnesota against Detroit.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Eric Kendricks here. This is just the perfect clip to me of how to defeat a cut block. So we've talked about taking on these higher blocks, whether it's shock and shed or rip and pry. But now what happens when this guy comes to cut me? So this is why it's important that we are playing with our hands, because now we can naturally react and put our hands on this man. So here's the coaching point of if we get a cut block. First is still what? 100% block attention. I have to see the guy that I'm taking on in order to defeat that block. Otherwise, if I'm looking at the ball carrier, he's going to roll right through my legs. Because when these guys are cutting, they're going to go through your leg, and then they're just kind of try to keep rolling up the field. So if I don't get that guy's helmet, it's not going to impede his progress, and he's going to keep moving through me. Well, if he's moving through me, I mean, his body's going to get in the way of my legs. I'm going down, or at least I'm going to stumble, right? And if I stumble, he won on the play. See the guy's body now twist? Yeah, exactly. Just like that. So what that does is now the guy's not going to go through my legs. So the next coaching point to that is I'm going to press down and away. So that's also playing into how do we not let this guy roll through my legs? You're actually going to give a little bit of ground. So now you can see Kendrick's legs are free to move through to continue to the ball carrier. Now, here's the last coaching point to it. Okay. I want to get my play side leg back. So what does that mean? Well, play's going right. So I want my right leg. I actually want to kick that back a little bit. Right. So my left leg will be a little forward, but my right leg will be back. The reason for that is once I clear this block, right, if they're cutting me, most likely the play's going the other way, right? There's not a good chance that it's going to cut, right? So if I have my right foot forward, once I defeat this block, I'm a little hip locked.
Got it. So you're turned back away from the action.
Away from the action, it's going to be a little bit harder to accelerate to the football. Whereas if I get that right leg back, my hips are open to where I most likely need to run, which is outside here to the right on the perimeter. So to me, that's a very good clip of Eric Kendricks doing that last year. So here's how we work this. We, again, whole part whole. How can we compartmentalize this, right? I've taught them the whole movement. So now how do we break it down? So you see here, Jacoby Stevens. This is actually me on my knees shooting out at these guys, right? I got to take some bumps here now, too, as the coach, okay? And that right there, perfect freeze frame, is the position I want them getting to, right there. So we're compartmentalizing, and then that's it. That is this first part of the drill. It's just feeling being in that position. The next part is starting in that position and pushing down and away, give ground. So here's Davion Taylor. Now I shoot out at him. I'm really trying to go through this guy's legs, and I know that they're not going to let me do that, right? So I'm trying to shoot through, and what happens is he pushes down and away. My body, again, helicopters. So you see, I don't gain any ground. I get turned sideways there. There's me on the ground looking like a fool because Davion is just owning me, right? So he pushes down and away, gives ground, and that's exactly what we want right there. That's defeating the cut.
So, Coach, we've seen all three different ways for defeating blocks. My last question for you is this. Linebackers in today's game, obviously all kinds of shapes and sizes, as you mentioned. And when they come from college, guys are asked to do all kinds of things. And even in your linebacker room, you've seen defensive linemen, linebackers, safeties, defensive backs, slot corners. When you have these guys and you have to try and teach them how to see things from a stacked position, can that be difficult? How long does it take a guy to get comfortable playing in the box?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, every guy is different, but that is always the adjustment. If a guy hasn't played stacked behind the ball, is process, right? You process things a little bit faster down low because those linemen, they get up quick. The run pass reads, they happen fast for you. So that's the biggest adjustment if a guy has never played in the box is how quickly can he get used to going through his keys and getting to where he needs to get to, getting his eyes in the right spot, going back to 100% block attention. All of that process, right, is kind of the adjustment if a guy hadn't played in the box before. And everyone is different, right? It's going to take some guys a day. Some guys it might take a couple weeks. So
interesting. Well, Coach, this has been awesome. I've learned so much. I hope our viewers have as well. Thanks for joining us here in our Coaches Masterclass presented by Lincoln Financial Group.
Yeah, thanks, Fran. Appreciate it.